everybody. I am back one last time. Hopefully not one last time. Hopefully you guys will, hopefully AC New Jersey will have me back again in the future for something else. But back for the last time for the short-term future. And I know I did a whole bunch of stuff on early learning the last couple weeks, but this will be a little bit more broadly focused on visuals across age groups, and hopefully we'll enjoy and we'll have some fun. So the Mike's got the bit.ly up there, and there'll be a QR code that you guys can access on the next page too. So if that's the easiest way, NJ Visuals, bit.ly/NJ Visuals. So just to get all of my stuff out of the way, I am currently employed as the Director of Educational Programs for Lesson Picks. I will be showing some Lesson Picks stuff in here, but this is not a Lesson Picks presentation, and almost anything that I'm sharing in here today that is from Lesson Picks is in as a free download. I also wanted to say I am a member of the editorial board for ATOB, which is the Assistive Technology Outcomes Benefits Journal. It is the journal arm of ATIA, and we have a call for papers that is open right now. It is linked in the presentation, but I just wanted to pop that up on the screen. And so it's going to be through July 13th. They even extended it further. I thought it was just going to be June 30th, but nope, it is going to be through July 13th. And the theme is assistive technology for communication. Doesn't necessarily have to just mean AAC. It can mean anything for communication. And I really encourage you to consider sending in a manuscript that you might be working on or have time to work on between now and July 13th, because we'd love to have your work and your input. Okay, so you can get a hold of me at posbeth@gmail, on Twitter @posbeth. Love it if you'd shout out to me today about what you're learning, and on Instagram @bethpos. So let's play a little Pictionary real quickly. Anybody that cares to in the chat, tell me what that visual means. Does anybody know what that means? I bet quite a few of you do. Right, stop. Okay, we all recognize it. Didn't take you very long. What about that one? Yep, we all know what that is, right? And one more. We got an emoji here. What does that mean? Yeah, sneeze or not feeling great, right, exactly. So we were able to figure that out pretty darn quickly, because the human brain is able to recognize a familiar object or a picture within 100 milliseconds. So fast, right? So why are visual supports important in a universally designed for learning classroom? Because they help us communicate information to individuals. So give information such as what's happening, what's not happening, what's changing, to communicate rules, reinforce and clarify expectations, reinforce or clarify curriculum content, help students organize their thinking and monitor and self-monitor, so like us and them, self-monitor behavior, and provide choices and expand communication. So the other thing we need to remember is that visual prompts and supports are still in time, right? They don't move, and they're a constant in a world that can be ever-changing. Something auditory goes in and it goes out. And I also want you guys to remember that visuals can include pictures, it can include colors and color coding, and it can also mean text. It's not just images. By seeing auditorily presented information visually, individuals with autism or intellectual disabilities or language disabilities may be able to make more sense of what they hear. I certainly know, even as a pretty functioning adult, that there are times that seeing something is going to help me process it better than just simply hearing something. So, spoken words disappear right after we say them. Visuals hold time and space. Visuals direct attention to what's being communicated. Visuals allow more time to process the information. They assist in remembering. And when we use the same words every time a visual is shown, it reinforces and teaches the child those words. So from a language or literacy. One thing I just want to put out there, this isn't really a session on universal design for learning, and I just realized my little girl's head is blocking the ER on learner. I'll fix that later. No such thing as the average learner. So that idea of neurovariability, it's important for us to remember. And so it's not about learning style, about being a visual learner as a learning style. It's more that in different contexts, any one of us might need visuals more in one situation than in another situation, right? Like seeing, like I need to see the map, not just hear the directions, okay? But in other situations, I might be fine just with that auditory. And there's no single way that a brain perceives or engages or executes a task. So I just want to remind you guys, it's not just about variability between students, but also within students in different contexts. So let's talk about components of the learning environment. And we're going to sort of frame today around those components of the learning environment. There's the physical, the social, the temporal, and now we are all living in the virtual environment. So we'll address those, and virtual will be sort of interspersed in between everything. So when we talk about that physical environment, we're really talking about arrangement and type of furniture, the way lighting affects us. I'm so happy I'm not yellow as sometimes I am with the lighting in my basement. It all depends on the light coming in through the window. And we think about that, like in our virtual environment, the way the lighting might be impacting us. How many people like went out and bought like special lamps because you didn't constantly want a shadow cast on your face? The floor covering, and the organization of learning centers and the access to materials. Those are all parts of the physical environment. So think about how in a classroom we might be having book bins organized, and then the flip side of the book bin so that kids know where to get their books from. In this example from a teacher's classroom, she also had labels on all of her books so the kids knew where to put those books back. So that was all part of the organization of that physical environment in this classroom. Think about some of the organization of the physical environment on the work that you're giving students to do. So here's an example. It is a lesson picks example. I think this is one I do not have linked. I'll try to go back in and link it later. But just a reminders at the top of the page of a writing piece of paper that how you need to start at the top, use a 2-finger spacing. So some of those visual prompts to help younger learners maybe, or learners that are struggling a little bit with that early writing, to be able to be effective. Think about what the visual supports that we need in math. So again, this is another image from Lesson Picks. If it's not linked in there, I will make sure I go back and link it. Where we've got a math problem workspace with some visual prompts of what you need to do, right? So that when we're supporting our learners, that they know those expectations. So make sure that you put your numbers in, use a proper operations sign, get whatever manipulatives that you need, make sure you put your equal sign in, and then check your work so that it's taking that student through. And the student has this space to work in, but this is the reminders to help them. Visual supports in math as well are whoops, go back to that. So this is one of my favorite. I think I showed some of these in my math session that I did last week. I can't even remember what week it is, but the math apps from the Math Learning Center have fantastic visual manipulatives that you can use on the web, in the Apple Store, in the App Store, in the Chrome Store, including I'm going to go back over here, including the number rack, where you can visually quickly see. The idea here is that visual representation of fives. So I know that this is 5 here. I know that there are 5 white beads and 5 red beads. And so I can quickly and easily see that if there's only 1 red bead over here, that must be 6, because I know there's 5. So I don't even have to count because I have that visual support. one of the things that's really cool is that they just started with this is that you can share your work between devices. And so there's a lot of, in their apps, there's the ability to show the work that a student is doing. We're always saying show your work, right? Because we as teachers need that visual support as well, so that we knew they understood it. And in this, they can share the work and show their work between devices, so a teacher can see what that student is doing on their end of things. Let's talk a little bit about Google Keep. I know it's one of Mike Murata's favorite tools. I have to admit it's not one I probably use as much as I could. I am an inveterate Post-it note junkie. But this is a technological means of having Post-it notes. And so using Google Keep as a means of organizing different lists, creating links to things, and having it all in one place where I can quickly and easily visually look. Having things, I talked a little bit before about color coding. So you can see how you can color code within this in order to make sure that so maybe I have everything to do with shopping or errands that I need to run in on orange ones, and maybe I have my to-do list of the day in a green, and maybe I have all the resources that I'm collecting on different topics on yellow Google Keep version of sticky notes, right? Another great, we sort of talked about this. This was another, I'm going to go in and actually show you guys. I want to show you guys actually Jamboard. I'm going to flip over to Jamboard in a second. So as far as visual supports in math, we talked a little bit. Here's this example, but having those visual supports. For those of us with that learning who are doing, let's see, where is that one? Let me forward over to, I just flipped over into a Jamboard that I wanted to show you. Jamboard is a digital whiteboard from Google. It is part of the Google suite of tools. And there is a Microsoft Whiteboard is the Microsoft version, and they function very similarly in many ways, so depending on the platform that you are using. But here, that same idea here is that we've got our workspace and we've got all of our prompts here, but then I can pull in manipulatives, right? So I've got those visual manipulatives that I could have. I can go in and I can take my pen and I can write 2, and then it's reminding me here that I need an equal sign, and then I can add those up, 6, 7, 8, counting on, and I've got and that was me with a mouse. That's not so bad. Imagine if I was using this on a touchscreen device, right? All right, so I'm going to flip back over here. Okay. That was kind of an odd thing there. That that Jamboard shouldn't have been in between those 2 slides, but that's what I get for not looking it over really closely. So Padlet, not dissimilar to Google Keep in some ways, in that you can use it again as the same way to keep your notes. You can, as opposed to Google Keep, where all of your notes are on one big corkboard, so to speak. In Padlet, you can have multiple corkboards with notes on it. So you could have ones dedicated to a specific thing. That may, for some individuals, that may be more helpful in that there's not as much in there. For other individuals, they may need to just go to one URL and have their stuff all within that. And as Mike can tell you, he can do an entire session on using Google Keep for visual supports and note keeping. So let's talk about our students that are at home. We've all been doing distance learning these days. Chances are we may be continuing doing distance learning this summer, and there may even be some distance learning in the fall. I think that's what everybody is trying to figure out right now, and we need to be prepared, right? And there's definitely some challenges that we've all encountered. So giving families a means to control what they can. So utilizing a checklist like this so that they're ready for schoolwork. Being able to have it in multiple languages. These are both linked and they are both free samples in lesson picks that you can use. You can download it and print it as a PDF. If you are a lesson picks user, I'm going to show you how you can actually utilize this in PowerPoint as well as a digital resource. So having this mini schedule of what they need to get ready for schoolwork in that physical environment, right? So let's talk a little bit about the social environment. when we talk about that, we're talking about how are relationships and communication fostered? How is culture and diversity, I was like having trouble reading for a second. How are culture and diversity acknowledged, respected, and viewed as a strength? And you might be thinking, well, how does that like have to do with visuals, right? I'm gonna show you in just a minute. I'm seeing a question from Irene. Do Jamboard activities have to be built on Jamboard, or can you place an activity that already made in a different platform? It depends. So yes, so I'm gonna flip, I know I'm kind of going all over the place. That's okay, it's Thursday, not Friday. So in the sense that yes, I can copy and paste anything that I have. So like I have this, the size of the problem discussion cards in Jamboard. This is just, let me get off my pen a second. And get on my mouse. So this is just a visual image that I made in Lesson Picks and pasted in there. And then I can utilize it with the tools that are already in Jamboard. So I can just pop that in there and I can utilize it with some of the tools that are already in Jamboard. I didn't have to make this in Jamboard, right? I just copied and pasted it in. All right, back over. So how are we going to talk about why is culture and diversity a visual? Well, we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then of course, things like roles and behavioral expectations and social emotional supports. So when we're talking about culture and diversity, the question that you want to ask, and this is where it becomes a visual, do students see themselves in the room? So what message do the resources and materials that you use convey to children and their families, right? So are they seeing a diverse bookshelf? Are they seeing the visual supports that you have around in your room reflecting them and their culture? Are they seeing it in their toys in an early learning situation? Are they seeing it in the motivational poster that you might have on the wall of your high school classroom? Whatever that is. So just to make sure that that is part, to understand that that sends a very strong visual message to students about acceptance. So let's talk about some behavioral expectations and social emotional supports. A lot of different types of resources that you can make, whether it's an I am working for resource, a contingency map, which I'll show you an image of in just a minute, scales and ratings like this one. And whoops, let's go back. I thought that was linked, but it's not. I will go back in and link that. So that check-in, like, can students talk about what they are experience at that moment? And I'm going to show you some other things related to social emotional, kind of in those zones of regulation thing. Books and stories and social stories, which we'll look a little more closely at. Talking about ways to track. So we have this, for example, is a great low-tech activity as students might be working on a task to keep them motivated as they are working for that. When we can cut all of these little images out, when they fill up their outer space chart, they get the item that they are working for. We have a great article in here on social skills that I've got linked as well. So here's some examples of some expectations and reminders. So this is a contingency map. A contingency map is going to show you, this is the location, right? That environment that we're having in, and these are the expected, these are behaviors that might happen. So if you sit and you eat and you drink, and we're not saying which one is the negative and which one is the positive, but if you sit and you eat and you drink, you're going to get to have a snack, right? You're going to get your special snack at the end of lunch or in the cafeteria. However, if you're out of your seat and you're walking around and you're talking loudly, you will have run out of time to finish your lunch and there will not be any special snack at the end. So again, a contingency, like these are the behaviors and this is the result. These are the behaviors and this is the result. So helping kids be able to consider what the results of their actions are. This is definitely linked in here, and this is a visual support that families could have next to their computer, that when they are online with their class, they should wear their headphones, raise their hand to talk, wait their turn to talk, and mute their microphone when they're not talking, right? Some of us could all use those too, right? There's times where we're like, oh no, I didn't have my microphone muted. I need a great big mute microphone next to my computer sometimes. And this is linked as a free download. So let's talk a little bit, Bitmoji craze. I mean, I joined on Facebook, like the Bitmojis for Educator Facebook group, but I am so overwhelmed by it, I can't ever even look on it. But Bitmojis are great as a visual to create some visuals. And so the music teacher in the school that I was last working in put this one together. So let me go ahead and cue it up. So she's got her music class rules. She's personal space, right? That you've got to be listening, raising your hand, play your instruments with permission, sing when it's time to sing. I love the singing. Forte does not equal screaming. Dance when it's time to dance, and that not every dance needs to be a fortnight dance, right? So she found a way that was attractive and motivating. The kids really liked it, especially those little bit older kids really liked the idea of using those Bitmojis. So use the resources that your students are going to find appealing to create your visuals. Let's talk a little bit about social stories, and I actually should change this to social narratives. Social narratives is more the generic term. Social story is actually something that is copyright by Carol Gray, and she started, she wrote on the concept of what a social story is, which is that it outlines behaviors of what you should do in a challenging situation and what the appropriate behaviors look like and how to manage so that you can get those behaviors. She has updated, so I have a nice link here to actually, it's from Vanderbilt University on how to write a social story. And then Carol Gray's updated 2018 criteria for a social story. But I should change the title of my slide to social narrative. So I have some social narratives here. So social distancing with Pete and Patty. I think that's something that we are going to need to closely visit if we are back in classrooms in the fall. We're going to be talking a lot about social distancing, and this is a free download of this social story that you can have. But I want to make sure to emphasize that a social story doesn't have to be something fancy with lots of images necessarily, that text can also be used. So I had a first grader who was very literate, was a good writer and a good reader, and he was having some issues in his classroom where he was drawing on things that he wasn't supposed to draw on. So we met together. I was his assistant principal, and we met together, and I said, you know what, we talked about it. He knew exactly what he was supposed to do and what he wasn't. He just couldn't remember it when it was time. He just wanted to draw on the desk so badly. So we co-constructed, we co-wrote a social story, and I took down in text exactly what he was telling me. And then his literacy skills were so good that he was able to read it back to me. So it was his social story. It was by Blake. And he titled it Draw on Paper. I should only draw on paper. When I was little, we're talking a first grader. When I was little, I used to draw on the desk, which is what he had done that morning. My dad had to clean it up. Actually happened at school, but that's okay. Maybe it was happening at home as well. And he was mad at me, and I told him I would never do that again at my house. At school, I drew on the desk, and he did draw a little illustration for me. At school, I drew on the clipboard. I should not draw on the desk. I should not draw on clipboards. If I feel, and so we outlined what he did. What he should do, I should only draw on paper. What he did, what he shouldn't do, and then an alternative for it. If I feel like scribbling, I should ask my teacher for a piece of paper. I should only draw on paper. And again, this was straight out of his mouth. What we did though is then we taped it to his desk and used that as a reminder, because he knew what he was supposed to do and what he wasn't. The download to the social story is in there, so it should be linked right on there. So you should be able to go right to that. Allison was asking. And so that really helped him a lot. Boy, am I bouncing all over the place today. That's okay. I need a little bit of zones of regulation, I think, because I am in this really high zone and I need to bring myself down a little bit, but I'll get there. So talking a little bit about a tool called Mood Meter and then zones of regulation. They're both very similar. Zones of regulation is a copyright out of Michelle Garcia Winter's curriculum that she has, and but there are other tools like the Mood Meter that uses very similarly in terms of the colors. So here's a more child-oriented, and here's an older student or adult-oriented. This is an app called the Mood Meter. You can download it on iOS. And it takes you in and you find kind of what you're feeling. And there's a large range of words that you can choose from by the colors. And then you can talk about if you're feeling discouraged, which is that blue zone of sort of feeling down, that where you want to go to. Do you want to stay in that blue zone, or do you want to shift to the green zone, which is like a good working space? The yellow zone might kind of be where I'm at right now, where it's like I'm a little over energetic. It's not a bad place to be, but I need to be careful and maybe bring myself down into that calmer green zone, right? So it helps take somebody through it and very much steps by steps them through it. It is all with text. It has a wide range of vocabulary to describe a feeling, and it's really nice. It doesn't. So the link on your screen, I should have shared it with you if you were. So if you download, Allison, if you download the slide deck from the link that Mike put in earlier, you'll be able to get to it. But thank you, Charlotte, for putting that in. Zones of regulation is a great way to talk about it with images with kids. And so this would be an example, which I also have linked in there, that you could take that and utilize it. And I put it, I think, in the Jamboard. Let's see, I think I put that in the Jamboard. No, I didn't put it in the Jamboard. That's okay, no big deal. But you can see it right there, well, I'm not gonna open it right now. Oh, I know where I put it. I put it in a PowerPoint. It's right there. So I downloaded this into a PowerPoint, which is one of the capabilities of Lesson Picks, if you're a subscriber. And so you can see how you could then have a student be able to talk about, well, if you're in the blue zone, what are some things that you could do to alert yourself a little bit more? You could take a walk, a body break, get some water. If you're in the green zone, that might be a perfect place for you to be doing work. So let's get your work done, or listen to the teacher, or it might be a good opportunity to talk appropriately to classmates. If you're in the red zone, maybe you need to have some quiet alone time, or take a walk, or do some breathing exercises. And if you're in the yellow zone, which is sort of like you could escalate if you're not careful into the red zone, take a body break, get some water, put your earphones on. So talking about what zone you're in order to be able to support those emotions and having those visuals with the colors to help you with that. Sometimes there are too many visuals. Leah Kuipers and OT. Okay, thank you so much. I know Michelle Garcia Winters does some work with that as well. So thank you so much for that. That might be thinking of her social thinking curriculum. Thank you so much, Debbie, for correcting me. So sometimes there's too many visuals, and Mercury Reader, which is a Chrome extension that you can install on your computer, is great for when we've got a page that might be a little too busy and kids are getting distracted by the visuals, to be able to click on that and it will take out everything except the most essential information, the text and the most essential images. So sometimes it's too many visuals. Another tool that you can do similarly with that is Read and Write for Google, where you can have a sliding mask where it's not showing everything. And I know also Snap and Read, which is from Don Johnson, has a similar tool. I just didn't post an image of that in there. So some of the tools that you might be using already to support your students with learning disabilities for text to speech or for note-taking, you can also use to make sure that they are able to focus on the most important visual information at that moment and not be overwhelmed by the visuals. So let's move a little bit into the temporal environment. We talked about, those were the social environment that we were talking about. We talked about the physical. So we're talking schedules and calendars, routines, the amount of time spent on activities, transitions, pacing of instruction and opportunity for repetition. So whether it's a schedule like this that you use where you're able to fold it over and close each flap as the task is completed, or it could be the opposite where you unfold each flap as it's time to get to the next task, so that someone who might be overwhelmed by what they have coming up, right? So you're not showing it all so that they're not getting anxiety about that. Or a visual schedule like this where, and I'm going to pull this one up in PowerPoint. So this is a visual schedule. It's broken into the 4 parts of the day. I did create this in Lesson Picks. And it is broken up into 4 parts of the day. I didn't want everything all at once. I wanted to be able to just focus on that, and I can slide that away so that they're only seeing that one point. And then I was able, using lesson picks, let me go slide this back and go, oh, I don't even have to do that. Let me just go on to the next section of it. So I was able in lesson picks, it's one of the features in lesson picks where you can add images right from lesson picks in your, and I'm not going to take the time to show that right now, but you can insert symbols from lesson picks right into your PowerPoint, or I could have copied and pasted them in if I was working in Google Slides. Just want to show you that's there. So I could check off, this could be sitting as the background on a student's computer. They flip to it as they complete each of their tasks. I like using the magnifying glass. I've shown this before so that you can focus on that thing. What is it time for now? Nope, we're not watching TV right now. Right now it's time for lunch. Don't worry, after lunch you'll get television. But right now we're focusing on lunch, right? So that we can have those. So we broke it up into the 3 parts of his day: the morning, breakfast and up until lunch, then the afternoon, and then his evening up until bedtime. Schedules don't have to just have images. So again, a little guy that I worked with, not Blake, another friend who was a good reader, but could not get through a task that he did not like. And so I was in his classroom and he was starting to have a meltdown, and I just grabbed a pad of paper and it was a red Sharpie that was handy, and that's what I think. I don't think it was a Sharpie. I think it was like a red marker, like a regular kid's marker. And we just wrote it down. Like, we wrote down what he had to do. You had to get a pencil, you had to write your name, you had to write or draw 6 U words. They were doing reading and writing around the room. Then you had to color, but that was optional. And then you had to show then he could show Miss Schultes. He wanted to show Mrs. Schultes every little step of the way. And so I kept reminding him, nope, that is number 5. You can't do that until you get to number 5. So for him, that's what we needed. It was in the moment. I didn't have it planned out, but because he was literate enough that he was able to do this, we had to have our counter, because at like 3, he's like, okay, now I'm gonna go show Miss Schultes. I'm like, no, 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 no. You have to have 6, okay? And so again, we were able to do that. Now, all of the rest of us, we need our visuals for temporal too. If it is not on my Google Calendar and therefore on my my Apple Watch, it is not going, I will not come to it. And then I also will color code things on my calendar so that I can make sure, so things that are business, that are appointments, I can have here. Something else that I can have in different, and then personal things that I need to take care of. So you can see I've got my tasks, my reminders, and that's from my calendar. You can set these colors up as whatever you want them to be, as far as changing and adding some different things that you need within Google. And then same type of thing, like if you're using an Outlook calendar, it is very easy to set different things up for color coding, so that when you're looking at your calendar quickly, you can thing it. Thank you, Irene. It's winter, not winter. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's talk about timers, keeping us on time for things. So we're all familiar with a variety of timers that are out there, and I have got links in here. So we've got the time timer, which this is a great one. I'm going to show you classroom screens, online stopwatch from Classroom Timers. So there's a whole lot of different timers that are in there. Hello, scroll down, there we go. So I can have that countdown clock. Now there are lots of ads with these, so I'm going to show you a little trick so that you can get away from the ads. There's still ads. It takes me in. I've still got stuff on there and it's kind of small. So I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to use the clock full screen. And there's still an ad there, right? But if over here, if I go in the corner and I go to super full screen, then it is just that timer. And again, some of these different timers that are in there. So that's the trick with the classroom, with the online stopwatch.com. And there's another one as well. So you just have to keep clicking so that you can get away from those ads and everything. A couple of different links in here. This one is to the Touch Autism program. It's a wait timer. It's an app for your iPhone, and the nice thing about that is it has different colors so that you can have, as a student is sort of counting down to something, and you can also create a social story to go along with that timer. And then this is the classic time timer, which is also available as an app as well as a physical timer. Some other physical timers, I think I have these linked to where they are on Amazon. Again, they show that color coding. They both work similarly. This one shows it, the plastic that it is, and it's the light goes from green to yellow to red to let them know that they are coming short or on time. This one, it changes, like there must be the light bulb inside somehow or other changes. Engineering that's beyond my abilities to be able to explain, but you can see how you can set it, and so that as it's going through, it gives them that visual, whoops, I didn't mean to do that visual warning. Classroomscreen.com is another place for great timers. I'm not going to click in there, but there's lots of other resources in there as well. Back to like our Google Keep, just so that you know, a feature of Google Keep as sort of that temporal piece is that you can set it so that you get a reminder that comes up on your list of something you need to do when you arrive at a particular location. So if I need to make sure that I'm turning my calculus homework in, I can set it so that it reminds me when I go to school. Okay, because how many times has the kids done their homework, but they don't turn it in, and that is so frustrating, and they just, I forgot, because by the time they're in high school, the teacher is not asking them, they're just expected to stick it in the folder as they walk in the door. So you can have it set so that they get that reminder for it through Google Keep. Oh, some of my favorite, I'm not, let's see, I'm gonna hold this up to the camera because I didn't hook my iPad up, and we're sort of where we're getting on time. So talk a little bit about ways to sort of bring, I could have put this in the social emotional category, but that's okay. So to bring, if you look at the camera and not at my screen sharing, this is Gravatarium. It is free. You can get the full feature where it doesn't have like a little thing going across the top, but it is wonderfully soothing. Kids run, I would be able to give this, my same little friend who was falling apart because he wanted to give show Miss Schultes' paper every time when he really would have a meltdown. I would hand this to him. I would set a timer for it also on my phone, and he would get, a minute or 30 seconds or whatever it was, and he needed to calm down. And this is an iOS app, but there's a great one that is called Paint Splash that is available for Chrome. And then strategies, and that's why I put it in transitions, because that's why I put it in temporal, because it can help ease transitions. So right when they get upset and something's happening, or to use it as a timer. So again, if you look at the camera, my image, not the screen, I don't know how to talk about that. So I made a glitter. I've got the directions right there, like a common glitter jar recipe. This is just a plastic bottle, and I used a little bit of food coloring and some very super fine glitter, and it's clear glue and water. And you don't even have to have hot water if you are not using glitter glue. If you just use glitter, but not glitter glue and clear glue. And what I would do is I would say if a student was falling apart, or if we needed an opportunity, it was time and that timer got off, but they're still, we would shake this up. And then by the time the glitter settles, they needed to settle too. So it became a visual cue, and we would talk about, do you see it starting to go down? I shook it a lot, so it's gonna take a little bit. And depending how much glitter, how much glue, you can get ones where the glitter will sink faster versus slower. But it would give them, again, just that different visual reminder, and it would be very calming. And I would use that phrase, when the glitter settles, you have to settle too. We can also have some other calm down options. So whether this is a book, a calm down book, and here is a visual schedule of the same thing. So giving the students a choice. So the idea with this is that you don't have to go through everything, but these are options to remind you. So, do you want to do 5 bounces with your legs, or 5 jumping jacks, or 5 steps of a bear walk? So different choices there. So I want you guys to sit and think for a moment. And you can put some answers in the chat if you'd like to. So we're not going to take a few minutes. We'll take a moment or two. And think about what you're doing in distance learning and in your building-based classroom. And then I want you to think about what might you redesign in your current setting? What is working well, but you could add so that you can give some choice and autonomy? Or maybe start thinking about a student who has more needs and how you can front load some supports and eliminate barriers for them. And then if people want to post in the chat, I would love to hear from you something that we talked about today or that comes to mind for you that you can easily add to your current practice. Because even if you're heading into summer and not doing ESY, what is something in the fall? Even if you're not sure whether you're going to be in a physical classroom or in a virtual classroom, what are something that you can easily add to your current practice? So if anybody wants to share out in the chat, I would love to hear from you. I'll give you a moment to process. I feel like I talk so fast in these, Mike, because I know that it's not an hour, but we did pretty good today, 12:42.
I thought that was fine. It was very good.
Yeah. So if anybody wants, and if you don't care to post, that's okay too. So Katie, thank you for being brave. I think I could use more technology when we're back in the classroom to engage the students more. So maybe from your distance learning experience, that you figured out that some of that technology is engaging. And Robin says she's going to try the Gravatar app. I love that. It is, I had some kids that is the only thing that works with them. Allison says, she likes the idea of the social distance narrative. Yes, I think, that's something we talked about a lot with kids, like like a month or so ago, a couple months ago, but when we get back into school, we're gonna have to reteach that in a new environment. It's gonna be really challenging. It's gonna be really, is there one about masks? I bet there is. I can look for it. And if not, if you have lesson picks, by all means, please go ahead and write one. And I'm sure that people will be, like, on all different platforms. So whether it's lesson picks or other image platforms, that people will be writing ones, because it may be newer. Our kids might not be having to wear masks right now because if they're mostly in their homes. Donna says she likes the Google Keep and the calming apps is something she's going to use, and the ways to make it suitable for older students. Yeah, the Bitmojis, right. We want to make sure that things are engaging for our students, and we want to use what they are going to pay attention to. So the Google Keep with middle school students with executive function. Yeah. And the calming glitter bottle. Thanks. I see somebody. And yes. And that's one of my favorite things. Like, so sometimes you give it to kids to, like, for them to watch, but it's the idea that there's an end point. And so now you can see it's almost there, and I could point to that and we could show the glitter that's down there and say, hey guys, glitter saddle, you too. Boston Children's Hospital just shared a mask social story on their Facebook page, so we'll have to look at it. Well, thank you guys so much, Mike and Naomi. If you're on here somewhere, this has been such a great opportunity. I just love sort of this, the group of people that you guys are getting on here, and that we've had sort of this casual discussion, and I can be my crazy wild self. I love it when I start talking about zones of regulation and I realize I'm a little in the yellow zone today. I need to bring myself down.
That's all right.
So thank you.
Living in the yellow is okay, Beth.
Yeah, the bit.ly again is bit.ly / and if I get this wrong, Mike, you want to, it's
NJ Visuals.
Yeah, is it, I don't need that. Yeah, NJ, is it two? It's just one backslash. There
just,
we go.
Yeah,
NJ
just the one
Visuals.
Backslash. Yeah.
I'm getting myself mixed up. So yeah, so there you should be able to go. It's the bit.ly / NJ Visuals. Do I do PD through any other places? I do PD all day long. So yes, I'll do PD. Anybody that needs me to do PD, and then I'm doing PD all day long for lesson picks. So will the chat and all the links be, Mike, that's a Mike question. All of the links are in, and if you go to the, get my mouse back, if you go to the bit.ly, And I'm going to just flip it back to the QR code. All of the links are in there. There were a couple to some lesson picks resources that I will make sure get in there, but all of the links are in so many slides. Oh, there we go. All of the links are there, and you can get to it using that QR code or that bit.ly NJ visuals. You're welcome from England. Thank you for joining us from England. So yeah, you can get right in there and do that. But all of the links, everything is live that is shared, and you guys can get to that slide deck. So it is there for you with all of the links. All right, Mike. Awesome. 12:46. That wasn't too bad.
Not too bad at all. Beth, it was awesome as always. Thank you.
And it's 45 minutes closer to Friday.
Exactly. I agree.
All right, guys. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you, Beth.